Hello and welcome back to another lesson of Logos and Letters. My name is Liam. Let's continue on. But let's have a quick revision of the last part that we looked at. Igar kata medenos ton tinon anthropon, ude kata anthropu holos. I want to revisit this line because it has a really key idea that I'm not sure if I really covered enough in the last lesson. So if you can say something specific about a particular man, it doesn't mean that you then automatically say it of all men. Same for every animal. So if someone has a quirk or an idiosyncrasy, say this magi in the middle is really good at mathematics. Okay, he has his own unique way of counting, and he was naturally gifted at mathematics, arithmetic. He's almost never wrong. Okay, we don't then say it of all men, but we say that all men are capable of that. Okay, we say it's potential for all men. Okay, that by being a human being that they can then become so good at mathematics. But we just don't say it's actual. We don't say it's it's just the way it is. So again, there might be, let's see, it doesn't. This man might be an excellent marksman. He can hit a moving target from 300 meters with iron sights, no worries. Just instinctually knows how to hold his breath, how to lead the target, okay, and all these things. We say that's a potential for all human beings, that they can get to this level, get to that ability, but we don't say it's actual. So why is this key? All right, it's to stop us from seeing just one or two of a particular species and then judging the character, then deciding on what all that species is. Okay, and this is a sort of natural bias, or no, not even a bias. It's more of a natural way of how we just operate. You know, we have a small data set and then we extrapolate and we sort of judge everybody by that data set. So if you were to explore a new country, if you were, say, Captain Cook and you were in Alaska, you might meet a few natives, and by meeting those few natives, you will form a judgment on all the natives that are there. And the same for the natives. The natives would meet Captain Cook and the other sailors and whatnot, and they would form a judgment of all British, Irish sailors. I think he had some Spanish sailors, but they may have just been on the first voyage. Anyway, it's a natural way that we operate. However, that is not a reliable way to operate when it comes to logic. Okay, as we study logic, we're realizing that we cannot mix what is potential with a species and what is actual with a species. And taking another step further, we are talking about what's contingent about this or that person instead of what is necessary about these people. So if we go back to this family here, saying grace, or seems to be a little bit longer than that, almost like he's providing a sermon before the food. This guy's wondering if he'll hurry up. So we can see these people, and they've each got their own quirks, right? Their own idiosyncrasies, what the things that make them unique, particular accidents. So we then don't just assume that everybody in this town or village or nation has the same things as them, all right? Or the same behaviors and habits and vices and all these things, because those are contingent. They're not necessary. And remember, when we say contingent, we mean those things that are based on free will, or those things that are based on chance. Those things are based on nature and nurture in a way. necessary things are based on like what is essential to being that primary substance. So for a human being, obviously, we would come in and we'd expect everybody from a foreign nation, to have a soul, because that's what all human beings have. We'd expect that everybody has all the other things that are natural to being a human. Okay, so being bipedal, all right, we wouldn't expect quadrupedal humans. You wouldn't go to some country you've never been to before and say, "Oh, I wonder if they have 4 legs over there." That's ridiculous. Being monocephalic, how do you pronounce that? Monocephalic. Having one head instead of having 2 heads or no head. Some animals don't really have a head, as Aristotle would point out. So there are things that are necessary about being a human, or about being in any species, like a horse. What's another animal? Oh, like a vulture or an eagle. Don't know which one that is. And is there a deer around here somewhere? Maybe that's a deer. So for every species, there are things that are essential to what they are, and we've been speaking about that. That's like their differentia. Hai diaphore, we spoke about those words earlier, and those are the things that we can say of all their species, but not their particular accidents. Okay, so that's what that sentence is really bringing to the forefront, and that's why I wanted to go over it again. Palinto chroma en somati, ukun kai entini somati, igar meentini ton kathekasta, uden somati holos. And this line is a really great one. Neither according to man as a whole. Again, the color in a body. This is like a negative, therefore, and in some particular body, and therefore it is not in some particular body. If for it is not in each of all of them, neither is it in some particular as a whole. Okay, so again, jolted English, trying to be as literal as possible, to help people translate on their own and then form their own translations. But if just to sort of support what we're saying here, if she has fair skin, okay, and she has this like quality of whiteness about her skin, then that color is a particular accident. All right, and it's an accident in general. It's not essential. You can have skin colors of all different sorts, so it's not an essential quality that you can say about all bodies. You look at the pyramids and how it's marble, and it's got a different quality from the red brick clay over here. All right, even the colors of stars differ. Okay, some are very bright and luminous, and some are darker. Some have redder hues to them. Even some stars have a bluish hue or a brown sort of hue to it, and so that's just going to show that, just because this color is in this particular body of that species doesn't mean it's in every single body of that species. All right, and why is it like that? It's because it's not essential. It's contingent. It's relying on many different factors to create that event, create that particular accident, and that's why it's not a reliable thing to predicate of everything in that species. All right, but the fact that fusion happens in a star, in all stars really, that is a reliable thing. Okay, you don't go to any star and expect to see a coal-fired power plant. No, you expect fusion to be happening in there, and so on and so forth. So let's continue on. Hostet alla pantai toi kat hypokaimenon legetai ton proton usion, en hypokaimenais autais estin, me uson ton proton, usion adunaton ton alon di ainai. All right, good. He's put a little bow on this. So going back over it, here we go. Just as the all other things, which according to substances are said of first substances, or in the substances themselves. So hypokaimenais is like, think of the subject as a whole. That's hypokaimenais. It's related to the verb hyparkousi, right, that we looked at, hyparkain, in the infinitive. But substances, this protonusion is a little bit more specific. So things are either things we can either differentiate, we can divide as being in primary or secondary substances, or in the substance itself. Okay, things that are in the protonusion, the first primary substance, we would leave as secondary substances. Okay, they're the things that are like that are essential to it, that are imprescindible, which means cannot be cut away from, cannot be torn away from, and everything else which we can identify in a subject are in the substances, and those things that are in the substances are the accidents. Okay, and they're not in them as a part. Okay, you knew I was going to say that by now. Not in them as a part, but they just exist, right, as like features and qualities and identifiable aspects of that substance. Okay, me uson ton proton usion adunaton ton alon ti anai. So adunaton, if you're learning Greek, you probably picked up that this means impossible. Adunaton. Me is a negative sort of sentence, word, and look how they separate the words like this: ton proton usion alon, ton alon, of the different first substances. It is not impossible for something in particular to be. So if it weren't for primary substances, all these other things that we've been looking at, it'd be impossible for them to exist. Look, so go back to this lady here. You don't just find the redness of her lips existing independently of her, and that's how we know it's an accident. Okay, that's how we know it's something that falls upon a substance. The length of her arms, the length of her body doesn't exist independently of her. Her statesmanship, okay, her ability with politics doesn't exist independently of her. Exists in her mind, all right, in her mind, and that's how we know it's an accident. What's one other feature? Her weight, even. Okay, her weight doesn't exist independently of her. It exists in her, and that's how we know it is an accident. Continuing on, even Noah and his ability to know how to perform rituals and rites, that exists in him, in his mind, not independently, and therefore is an accident. What's another one? Something, let's do for this cow. Okay, it's the color of its skin with the pattern. So if you think of the entire pattern of its appearance with these brown spots, and there might other be brown spotted white cows, sure, but this particular one doesn't exist independently of in the cosmos somewhere. It is just there residing upon the substance, and therefore is an accident. Okay, even this body of water, this, right, see how it curves, right? The shape of this river does not exist independently of the river, therefore is an accident. Can you see that sort of formula that I'm using to clearly identify and explain and defend what an accident is? It's something that doesn't exist independently on its own. It needs a substance to reside upon, to fall upon. Okay, and we could speak about the clouds and the trees and the flowers have all got their own examples. Let's continue on. So, in short, what we've covered in this in this paragraph here and in this paragraph here is that we should not use a small sample size of any species whatsoever to then form a judgment on the whole species. That's asking for a mistake. You might get lucky and actually say the right thing, but you need to, when you have a small sample size, you need to be looking for what is essential about them, not what is contingent. All right, so you might notice that they're all of a species is bipedal, and then you would assume that the rest of the species is bipedal. Okay, that's essential. You would notice that they all have one head, and then you would form a judgment that they all have one head. All right, if some particular member of the species counts with their fingers, you don't then assume that every member of the species counts with their fingers. Same with animals. If this horse only never drinks at midday or something, you don't then assume that all horses never drink at midday. It's just some quirk about this horse. Okay, if there's another animal, anyone seen it? Here we go. If this dog never barks at strangers, you don't then assume that all dogs of that species never barks at strangers. All right. Same with the sheep. If the sheep are really well behaved and they never, and they always come back to the call of the shepherd, you don't then assume that all sheep always come back to the call of their shepherd. All right. So that's how that works. Finally, when we were looking at protonousion, there are things that reside in it. Well, no, reside as a part, like a feature of it, and those are the secondary substances, and all other things fall upon those substances. All right, there's a clean dividing line between things that are just generally said. Let me get this. There's a clean dividing line between these two. Okay. First and secondary substances, and all other things which are accidents are just said of being in the substance. Okay, not as a part, just existing there, coming and going. Okay, they might be there one day and gone the next. They might be there 1 hour and gone the next. Right. So if you're really hot after a workout, that could be there for an hour, and then you cool down, and you might even be cold again, and it's gone. All right, so those accidents come and go. You might be musical 1 year and then not musical the next year. All right, so they come and go. These things are more stable. On this side of the divide, they are completely stable. They will last the lifetime of that subject in question. And accidents are not stable. They have different expiry dates, if you will. All right, and this last sentence here, it's not possible for accidents to exist on their own. That's what we're getting at here. Accidents will not be found to exist on their own unless you want to make the argument that they exist in a mind, and that's fair enough. We've touched on that. There's a lot to say about that particular argument, and we'll get into that. But yes, that's a very fair argument to make, and a good one to keep in mind for now. So I'll leave that there. I appreciate your time and your attention. I hope you've gotten something out of that. Everyone's got a different reason for studying this material. You might be a theologian, a philosopher, a logician, someone who just loves to learn, someone who's trying to learn Greek and practice their Greek, or someone who is trying to upskill themselves for another job that I've overlooked. And for whatever case that you're studying, I hope this has proved helpful. For those of you that have come with some prior knowledge, I hope that this has helped refresh your memory of the things that are in here, and it's been enjoyable. My name is Liam White. Sis fortis in opere tuo, and I will see you next time.